It is without question that you are an absolute juggernaut in the gaming industry, with countless successful franchises, a complete dominance in arcades during the early 90s, and a more solid track record than most other veteran publishers, minus the occasional flop here and there. Some of these series I only just got into last year, in fact, while others I still need to get to at some point. But we're not discussing any big franchises today. Rather, I'm here to talk about a one-off game you made that holds a very special place in my heart and deserves to have a proper successor. That's right, I'm talking about Dragon's Dogma. Released in 2012, even though I first played it in 2014, this was a title that every time I saw it in a store, knew I had to play it. Once I finally did, I found myself completely hooked on a game that would later become my favorite RPG to date. Today, I'd like to take this opportunity to explain why I adore this game, and why it not only should have one, but needs a sequel. So without further ado, let's get started. So RPGs are a genre that tend to not focus on gameplay, but rather on immersive world design, a deep progression system, and a very story-driven experience. This is the formula that many studios and developers, both American, Japanese, or anywhere else, have used for decades. Every once in a while though, there's a game that breaks that formula. Dark Souls is a game with a very well-written lore, but the main draw of that game was its more skill-based combat system, where you could win a battle no matter what gear or stats you had so long as you could understand patterns. Dragon's Dogma falls more in line with that category, where the gameplay is the main draw to the game rather than the story or world, for several reasons. For starters, this game just screams epic in the scale of some of these fights, and how much more interactive they are. You don't just tap away at light or heavy attacks in this game. You scan the environment, search for advantageous positions, scale giant monsters to reach a vulnerable spot, etc. Even if you don't have a mind-boggling amount of attacks available to you, you know how to use them, in tandem with the reasonably exploitable weaknesses every enemy has. Now, I mentioned Dragon's Dogma falls in line with Dark Souls earlier, but that's not entirely true. See, Dark Souls is a game where skill determines success, whereas something like Skyrim, easy target, is more based on your stats and equipment. Dragon's Dogma falls somewhere in between, which makes it feel a little more realistic in that regard. If you're not properly equipped for the task at hand, you can't win. But at the same time, if you have the best gear, stats, and items, shoot. But at the same time, if you have the best gear, stats, and items, all of that means nothing if you don't understand your foe. One underlooked positive to this is that, with the exception of weapons, you can wear whatever gear you wish, so long as you're not dependent on it. So all you people like me who prioritize armor that looks cool over actually being good, this game's got you covered. And speaking of looking cool, do you want to summon a spike of ice from the ground and impale an enemy? How about parrying an enemy, then stabbing them and finishing with a powerful slash? Honestly, that's just scratching the surface, because this game has some of the coolest skills in any RPG. I think just the name Dragon's Maw will fill anyone who's played this game with joyous thoughts. This isn't thanks to the incredible class system of this game, where all 9 classes play extremely different and have a multitude of fun and unique attacks. As every class can only have 6 skills set, except for the warrior, who for some reason only gets 3, you have to decide on which ones you want more, or better yet, which ones work better together. Meanwhile, different weapons have core skills that you can unlock with the class that uses said weapons, and every vocation gets unique augments that can transfer to other classes, allowing you to create a hybrid tailored to your liking. This class system doesn't just apply to you though, it also applies to your pawns, this game's strongest aspect. The game doesn't have a multiplayer mode, but every player does have a personal companion called a pawn. These computer teammates acquire knowledge from accompanying you on completing quests, battling foes, and you can even change their style by altering their inclinations. This system goes very in-depth, but once you decide on these things, you can rest at an inn, and your pawn's data will be sent to the Rift, a dimension players can go to and hire 2 more pawns created by other players. I love this system, more than I realized it at first. Many of my favorite games involve some sort of player input to how things play out. The pawn system, the in-depth character management, and dramatically tense combat provides the opportunity for so many personal stories to be crafted, and the game is most definitely better off for it. Need an example? I got plenty, but I'll go to the main story I like to share. During a section earlier in the game, you visit an area called the Everfall, a large chamber with a winding staircase leading to something called the Flame Servant's Throne. On the way there, you meet this guy, the Ogre, and typically this is your first encounter with him. During this story, my support pawns were both struck down, and as the melee fighter of the group, I was still in the fight, but almost out of curatives and low on health. Just before the Ogre could finish me off though, my pawn Gatlin jumped onto his head and slashed away at his face, causing it to swat away furiously at him until it backed up too much and fell off the edge, taking Gatlin with him. This is the kind of thing I mean. In other RPGs, a moment like this would be in a scripted set piece typically, but here, it all happened in real time in an entirely unique way. At this point in the video, I was going to mention the large catalog of clips I had saved on Xbox Live that you could check out to get an idea of the spur-of-the-moment things that happen in the game, only to find out that most of my clips have been deleted, which off-topic includes every single Metal Gear Solid 5 clip I had. Yet another reason I'm tired of modern-day Microsoft. But anyway, back to the video. The final reason I love this game is because of its endgame. Think of it. How many single-player RPGs do you set down after beating the game and never touch that save file again? I know that happens to me a lot, but not in this game because of its massive amount of endgame content. The original release includes the Everfall, an area I talked about before, but ends up becoming so much cooler down the road, with multiple rooms that have their own bosses and arenas respectively, traveling merchants, and more. Then, the Dark Arisen expansion offered Bitter Black Isle, a roguelike dungeon with randomly generated loot, making the game almost feel similar to Diablo. I wanted to talk more about this, but I kinda got stuck on a fight that's always given me trouble and had to call it a stopping point in terms of gathering footage. These endgame zones are fun, challenging, and make continuing to play and experience them worth your time. I should know, because when moving to our new home with the living setup we had, the only thing I could really do was play this game 6 hours a day, every day for nearly a month. Yet through all that, it still kept me engaged from beginning to end. And considering I'm the kind of person that jumps from game to game, never sticking around with one for too long, that's a tremendous success. So in a nutshell, this is why I enjoy Dragon's Dogma so much. The insanely memorable experiences that can't really be earned anywhere else. Which brings us to the main point I want to make in this video. Capcom, Dragon's Dogma needs a sequel, quite possibly more than any other game in your library, and there's a key reason as to why. As I mentioned, I love this game, but I also understand there are plenty of valid criticisms that even I can agree with, like the severely lackluster story. In fact, these flaws are the reason I think this game deserves a sequel beyond just, I want one. Dragon's Dogma, for all intents and purposes, feels like a proof of concept. You have these amazing boss battles, a unique selling point with the pawns, and great class customization. Everything surrounding that, though, can sometimes feel clunky, like it hasn't been fully fleshed out, and that's what I'm getting at here. Re-releasing the game on newer systems with tweaks to it is great. Having an MMO to the game is even better, though I'm still a little peeved that it's region locked. Most importantly, though, you should take the formula established in these two games, polish it up, and give it a better story, and you have yourselves what would undeniably be one of the greatest RPGs ever made. And I can promise you that I will be first in line opening day to pick up my copy. Well, that's it. I could easily ramble on for hours about how awesome this game is, but seeing as I respect your time, I'm keeping this short and sweet. So in conclusion, thank you for one of the most fun gaming experiences in my entire life. And whether it ends here or this is only the beginning, I'll never forget how much this game means to me. Thank you. Sincerely, Blackblade. Well, that was weird, but I hope you all still enjoyed it. And if you did, be sure to slice that like button in half, subscribe to my channel if you are new, and real quick, I'm going to take this chance and mention my Twitter page. I don't talk about it often because it tends to be off topic, and I'm not that big a fan of social media, but I'm trying to be more active there, so if you're ever curious about what's going on, or perhaps I haven't uploaded in a while, as I tend to do, and want to find out why, then that's the best place to check. so go follow me there if you're interested. Alright, once again, hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.